Hello everyone, it's Masters, and we have just reached 100 subscribers! So, as I have promised, I will review a book that is very, very, very special to me. The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I love this book. Before we go to the presentation section, let me tell you how I came across this book. I was in 6th grade, and in my class we had to do book reports on a specific genre of books. Now, me being an avid reader at the time, I was very excited to get to learn more about genres and find out which ones I liked best. This particular month, I had to choose from 3 genres: mythology, fantasy, or science fiction. Now, the Percy Jackson series was pretty new at the time, and I wanted to be in on the popular craze. However, the books were in high demand, so I couldn't get The Lightning Thief at the library, as that was what I wanted to read for my book report. I was very upset. I really wanted to share my knowledge on Greek mythology with the class by reading The Lightning Thief and going over various stories referenced. Now, I'd talk about my mythology knowledge pre-Percy Jackson, but that's a video for another day. Anyways, I was upset and I didn't know what else to read. So my mom, being my mom, asked her friend for a recommendation, and then my mom came home with The Goose Girl. I saw how big the book was. Now, big books do not intimidate me. You are listening to someone who has read Harry Potter 4 in its entirety at age 9 years old with no issue. The main problem was that my mom wanted me to read it. Back then, I didn't like taking book suggestions. I wanted to find my own book, and I was quite adamant about it. But the deadline drew ever closer, so I had no choice but to read The Goose Girl. And let me tell you, on that day, something awoke in me. At that point in my life, the only fantasy I had ever read was Harry Potter and maybe some other fairy tales. I honestly can't remember. At the time, I preferred realistic fiction since it was more exciting, but then, after finishing The Goose Girl, I realized that my true favorite genre was fantasy. I will never ever forget finishing it for the first time. It was so fascinating, and Shannon Hale eventually became my favorite author as I started reading more and more of her other books. 5 years after I had finished it the first time, I got to go to a special event at the library where Shannon Hale and one other author would be doing book signings. Of course, I had brought my copy with me, and got it signed. I even got a picture with her right here. Also, here's how thick the book is, in case those of you were wondering. This is totaling 383 pages, in case you were curious. Okay, that's enough about the sentimentality of the book. Let's get over to the presentation section and go over the story and analysis. Hello, yes, and welcome to the presentation section of The Goose Girl. Now, let's get right into it, right off the bat. The Goose Girl is based off the fairy tale of the same name by the Grimm brothers. Since I'll be summarizing the book here in a few minutes, I will spare you from the summary of the fairy tale since it's pretty much the same, except it's a lot shorter and with a few differences. For one, the kingdoms aren't named, and it's a bit more magical and less explanatory. It's a fairy tale, it's not supposed to go into a lot of detail. And that totally rhymed. We're reviewing a novel here, people. Maybe one day I'll read the fairy tale for Storytime Saturday. It's pretty good. Since this is a fantasy novel, I should mention a little bit about the world we're going to be visiting. Here's the map that it shows you right within the first pages. This is Kildenray, a small country to the north. And this is Bayern, a bigger country to the south. To give you a good idea of their differences, Kildenray's size means that any bigger country could wipe them out without a second notice. So they always try to make peace with other neighboring kingdoms, like Bayern. This is important. Now, there are other kingdoms besides these two, but we'll talk about those in another video. Anyways, let's get into the main story. Now, I should make one thing clear. While I do recommend this book for anyone, it is difficult to review this story spoiler-free, so I would strongly recommend skipping to the review and analysis, or just stop watching right now if you want to read it on your own. Also, since this book doesn't have any illustrations, I will just be telling the story through use of the art on some of the book covers and some drawings or artist renderings, okay? Okay, moving on. The Goose Girl is about the life of Crown Princess Anidori Caladra Taliana Easley of Kildenray. Now listen, these are Britain. I have no idea how to pronounce them out loud. If you pronounce them differently, forgive me. This is not... You can pronounce the names however you want. So, just letting you know now. I've actually read the first few pages of the Goose Girl to you during my Earthbound Let's Play. I believe it was the episode where we had to wait at the waterfall for 3 minutes. I'll put a link to that episode in the description with the timestamp if you want to go look for it. Anyway, so the Goose Girl continues onward with the childhood and later adolescence of young Ani Dori, or Ani, a nickname given to her by her aunt. Now, Ani's aunt would tell her all kinds of stories, and many of the stories almost fit the style of fairy tales by the Grimm brothers. One of those particular stories talked about the 3 gifts of languages. There was people speaking, animal speaking, and nature speaking. People with the gift of people speaking are able to read other people like books and are able to know their strengths and weaknesses and manipulate them to their will. Many rulers have this gift, including Ani's mother, the queen. Ani's lady-in-waiting Celia also has this gift. This is important. Now, animal speaking is exactly what you think it is. People with the ability to learn and speak the language of animals. Not like Disney princesses, but like actually barking at your dog and understanding what they're barking back at you, or any other form of talking to animals. Ani's aunt actually taught Ani how to speak with some birds, such as swans, owls, hawks, and other kinds of birds. Later, Ani learned that horses are born with their names on their tongue, and eventually gained a horse friend, a white stallion named Falada. Now, it's complicated as to how one can communicate with horses, and it's explained that Ani can only communicate with her own horse. I'd go into details about all this, but I think that would be a video all by itself. Now, nature speaking is a rare gift for a human to wield. Basically, they can communicate with the elements of nature, like fire or wind or tree, or maybe even stone or water. It's a long list. It's similar to bending the elements like an avatar, but it's also different. It doesn't really require hand motions as far as I have read, and yes, there are nature speakers in this story. Anyway, so back to the main story. Sorry I keep going off on so many tangents, there are just so many small things in this book that are really important to the story. As Ani grows up with all of these tales, her aunt tells her multiple times that she cannot let her mother know or anyone else because they will try to take her gift of speaking to animals away. Kind of like a witch hunt, if you ask me. Of course, Ani can't keep it a secret for much longer, and is thus confined to the castle and to her studies, and to her only friend Celia, her waiting lady. On the day of the death of the King of Kildenray, Ani's father, the Queen announces that the next heir to the throne is Ani's younger brother. The Queen tells Ani that she and the Prime Minister of Bayern had arranged a marriage between Ani and the King of Bayern's eldest son. Ani is of course upset, because what if you just found out that you had been studying your entire weekend to pass this final, only to find out that there is no final? Yeah, I'd be pretty mad too. She had studied her whole life to be Queen of Kildenray, and here her mother is saying, nope! You have to prepare to be queen of a place you've never been before. Now, also, please note, Ani has never met the King of Bayern, nor his son. So, she's basically going into this blind. I just figured you should probably know that now. So, Ani prepares for the journey and takes Celia and a 40-man guard with her to the forest. Ani also takes Falada, her horse, with her as well, since they have that special bond. Now, the important people in this 40-man guard are Talon, the captain, and Ungalad, one of the mercenaries who has been to Bayern and offered to be a guide through the forest pass. There were several other people in there, but they're not as important to the summary. Seriously, I've been trying to condense this summary to be an appropriate length so that I could still keep your interest, but at the same time, like, just, yeah. I'm just gonna keep going. Throughout the journey, Ani notices that some of the men, and Celia, seem to be acting a little strange, and there are a couple of instances where Ani narrowly escapes death, not knowing how they are caused. Well, it turns out that half of Ani's guard and Celia had planned a mutiny to replace Ani with Celia. Now, Ani and Celia look alike. They are said to look like sisters, only Celia's hair is darker than Ani's, but not by much, but it's noticeable. Anyways, Ani does run away, but cannot reach Falada as they were separated at the time, so she ends up lost in the forest for a while. She eventually comes across the home of Gilsa, a forest woman living with her son Finn. Gilsa and Finn help Ani get to the city in disguise, for no reward too, since Ani knows that once her hair is seen, the bad guys will find her and kill her, since in Bayern, blonde hair is a rarity and considered exotic. Plus, Ani had taught herself to imitate the Bayern accent so she wouldn't be a dead giveaway, which is why she's pretty awesome at languages. So anyways, moving on. Once Ani gets to the city, she finds out that Celia and her cronies had killed the good guys. All of them. Which was about 20 of them. There were 20 good guys and 20 bad guys. It was a nice even number. And Celia is currently posing as Ani at the castle and currently trying to win the prince's affections through her people-speaking gift, which really isn't that hard when you have people speaking. But that's a video for another day. Anyways, moving on. So to hide, Ani decides to work in the palace as a goose girl and eventually learns to speak with the geese. She also befriends the other workers there, who are also people from the forest. Two of the most important workers in the story are Anna, one of the chicken girls, and my favorite character, and Conrad, the goose boy who Ani works with. Now, let me go on a tangent here real quick and mention that everyone needs a friend like Anna. Anna is strong, confident, and will do anything to protect her friends. Now, the main reason I love her so much is because at some point in the story, Anna sees Ani with her hair down because, you know, you gotta brush your hair at some point, and just let it hang loose. Now, the people of Bayern know that the Kildenrayans at the palace are looking for a girl with yellow hair because they suspect that Ani had survived. Ani told Anna her story, and Anna believed her. Anna even stuck up for her when Conrad discovered Ani's true heritage by accident. And also one other time, there were a couple of bad guys who had been part of the mutiny. They discovered Ani and tried to take her outside the city to slit her throat quietly. Well, Anna saw this and called the peacekeepers of the city to help Ani. So yeah, Anna saves Ani a couple of times, and I'm just like, I need a friend. I need me a friend like that. Plus, Anna really likes to pull pranks. Seriously, like, her introduction is her pulling a prank, and it is the best thing ever. I'm just like, I need to get me a friend like that. I need this. Okay, moving on. During this time, Ani also got acquainted with the palace guard who guards the prince named Jarek. Jarek is my favorite. He's just so awkward and tries his best to be a gentleman. One of my favorite scenes with him is when he tries to force a naughty Goose to apologize to Ani, but fails miserably. He even tried to bring Ani flowers, but it was raining so hard all the petals got destroyed. Well, he tried. Eventually, the two began to fall in love. He's just so cute. He kind of reminds me of Meta in some ways. Now, over time, Ani had also begun to pick up wind speech after the death of her beloved horse, Falada. Yes, the horse dies, sadly, and they put the horse head near the goose pasture. Also at this time, Jarek wrote a note to Ani saying that he couldn't see her anymore, that he couldn't love her as a man loves a woman, leaving our dear princess heartbroken. Now let's talk about wind speech here for a second. It's not like airbending in Avatar, no, not quite. The wind tells you what it's touched. Let me read to you an example on page 252. A spider's web, sang the wind. The stream, the tattered cattails of autumn, the slender birch trunks, the wood, men in the wood, 5 men in the wood, coming toward the stream, toward the geese, and the beach, and the princess. And Ani can suggest to the wind where to go, and sometimes it will listen. Sometimes, but not all the time, though. One day in the goose pasture, Ani is just tending the geese and stops 5 bandits from taking them, with her newfound wind speaking. The king is pleased with this, and wishes to reward whoever was responsible. But since Ani knows that the palace equals death, she sends Conrad instead. Well, stupid Conrad told the Kildenrayans that Ani was disguised as one of the workers and Ungalad comes to murder her and nearly does so. But Ani manages to escape back to the forest and find Gilsa's home. Now, she also finds out that Talon, one of the good guys, was still alive and living with Gilsa's neighbor. They had originally planned to head for Kildenray and tell the queen what happened, but word on the street is that Kildenray plans to invade Bayern. Remember how I mentioned that Kildenray is small and doesn't like to make its neighbors mad? Well, guess what? Celia actually told the king that Kildenray wanted to invade, and only told them because she loves Bayern. Her real plan is to wipe out most of Kildenray to seal her secret, since she knew that people from Ani's family would come to visit and see the deception. Actually, that's not a bad strategy, but I do not recommend trying it at home! So we move to plan B. So Ani and Talon and Finn go back to the city and meet up with the rest of the workers, and Enna had told them everything, so all of the workers know who Ani is and are all ready to volunteer themselves to defend the real princess. Man, they're just ready to go. So they make their way to where the wedding is being held, and Ani disguises herself as her sister, Naperlina Victory, in order to get past the guards so they can tell the king that Celia is a fraud. Well, She gets past the guards, but Ani is taken alone. She confesses to the king everything that had happened, but Celia already had the king under her little finger. This is also where Ani finds out that Jarek is not in fact a guard, but the actual prince she was betrothed to. The king refuses to believe Ani, and so Jarek has the idea to leave Ani alone with the Kilden Rains, which of course is a bad idea. But it turns out it was actually a good idea, since the Kilden Rains confessed to the betrayal, and Jarek, the king, and many of the king's guard were hiding behind a tapestry behind the throne. There was a secret entrance to that area, and they heard everything. Battle breaks out, and the workers in Talon eventually get into the throne room and do their best to defeat all the baddies. They do defeat the bad guys, and Celia is promptly executed in a way that I'd rather not describe, as those with a huge fear of needles would probably not like it, and as someone who is very afraid of needles, just Anyways, Ani convinces the king to end the war preparations, and Ani and Jarek are married and live happily ever after. The end. Well, that was a pretty long summary. I'm sorry, but it's very difficult to summarize this story without leaving out some of my favorite parts. I could have just read the back of the book, but that wouldn't have been enough. Overall, I would recommend this book to anyone over the age of 12. It's well written, it goes over many kinds of societal problems, and covers how bad corruption and deception can get. There's also some other themes in The Goose Girl that are more apply to the series, because this is the first book in a series called The Books of Byron, and while there is an overall theme in each one of them, I'm not going to go over the same theme individually with each book. Instead, I'm going to be doing a series overview this September, and we'll talk about it then. Now, the societal problems it covers are this. In Byron, apparently, a man is measured by his worth of being able to receive a javelin and shield. City boys of age can receive this, but not forest boys. They would give anything to fight for their country, but they aren't even allowed in taverns because they're not considered worthy enough to wield a javelin and shield. Also, the peacekeepers are volunteers. They are not appointed by the king. They follow their own code of law to keep peace in the streets, since the city guards won't do anything to protect their own people. It's sad, really. However, in the end, once the boys have proven their worth, and Ani explains how she knows the needs of their people better than the king himself, the king appoints all of the forest boys to be granted a javelin and shield. Sometimes I wish that's how it would work in real life. Now, deception comes in all shapes and colors. One important thing about deception is that it comes little by little and is quite dangerous. You don't offer someone poison right off the bat. You give it to them a little bit at a time until it has run its full course and kills you. But as we all know, the truth will always come forth at some point. No one can hide from the truth, because the truth can set you free. There's one more thing I failed to mention, and that's the importance of gifts. Ani was forced into this adventure because of her gifts. Her mother failed to see the talent and worth in these gifts, and Celia did as well. The only people who saw Ani's gifts as wonderful were the people she was close to, like Enna and Jarek. They knew that she would never use those gifts for evil, and only used them with good intention. Even some of the other workers would ask for her help with their own animals, while Conrad tried mocking her for speaking Goose. Maybe some of us out here have gifts that people may find useless. Maybe it's playing an instrument or singing or just being very, very good at speaking or even writing. One important theme in this book that I believe is never forgetting or giving up on your abilities and using them for good. After all, The Goose Girl is one of many books that sparked my interest in writing my own works, and hopefully, someday, I'll be able to share my stories with the world. And that was The Goose Girl. I hope you will all enjoy this book as I have enjoyed it. It's a very wonderful story of courage and friendship. This book is actually the first of a series of 4. I'm hoping to talk about the other 3 books soon, as they were really good. Also, I would like to thank all of you in my audience for subscribing and supporting me. I never thought I would see the day where I would reach over 100 subscribers. Thank you for watching my videos and listening to me talk about books, read poetry, and scream at video games. I hope I can continue to entertain you all in the future, because I sure don't plan on stopping anytime soon. There are still thousands of books to show you, and thousands of games I would like to play for you. Well, I guess I better be going now. I have to get ready for the Valentine's Day special here in a couple of weeks, and while I usually part with happy reading, I'd rather part with you by reading the last couple of paragraphs from The Goose Girl. There was no hurry. There would be time for the captains to announce to their troops the end of the unfought war and bid them all home with their wives. There would be time to return to the workers' settlements in the city and see them all with javelins and shields, and to see Talone, healed and well, commanding 100 band of the king's own, and a wedding in the market square and the thumbprint of the gods, where the javelin dancers came at festivals, and where all could witness, noble and city dweller and forest dweller alike, the marriage of their future king and queen, Gilsa too, there, and at last rewarded. There would be time to take down the white horse head from the west gate and have a burial belated and quiet, Falada laid to rest under the beech tree by the Goose pond, and over that spot a monument laid, a carving in white stone of a colt and a girl seemingly too young for such adventures so far from home. And there would be time to spend in the stables in late spring, befriending the loose-gated stable-master and aiding a mare to foal. And when the colt, nothing but a bundle of legs and wet fur as black as Anna's hair, fell into her arms, Ani might hear a name.